Hello there, this is Kendo Nagasaki, Peter Thornley, the man behind the mask, and I am watching Cheap Shot Entertainment this afternoon and this morning and tonight. Hope you all join me. Bye!
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is awesome! Good day to you, wrestling fans. I am your host, Luke, and you are Cheap Shot Nation. This is Cheap Shot Entertainment, and these are retro reviews. Retro spelt with a W-R, because it's wrestling. Anyway, right, so we're moving on. July the 11th, 2004 was the day that WWE Vengeance came into town to Hartford, Connecticut, and it is a Raw brand exclusive. There was indeed 7,000 people crammed into the building, and it was a Raw brand exclusive. It is the Hartford Civic Centre where they set up this pay-per-view, and it is of course on demand on the network. I'm sure you can go to well-known swap shops and get it on DVD if you prefer. And the arena itself appears in 3 different games, and that is SmackDown versus Raw 2006, Day of Reckoning 2, and WrestleMania 21. Just before we get into the main part of the pay-per-view, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on YouTube, you know what to do. And if you're joining us on the podcasting channel, Quick Shot Reviews, then please drop a like on there and follow us there. We've also got plenty of movie reviews going off there too. Yeah, all fun and games. Just before we get going into the main part of the pay-per-view, the Sunday Night Heat results are Tyson Tomko, and he defeated Val Venus on the pre-show, because Sunday Night Heat was basically the pre-show at this point in time. So I did say I was going to start watching those shows, or at least the match. I can give you a decent rundown, but yeah, it's a pre-show. So yeah, we get 2-hour pre-shows now, and there's no matches on it. I mean, yeah, especially WrestleMania, and coming up SummerSlam, we're going to have 2 nights of 7 hours of wrestling. It's like, whoa, hold on a second, I like wrestling, I don't like it quite that much. That's like a quarter of my day, over quarter of my day, over half actually, of 2 days. But yeah, that's a nice quarter. Go back. Right, we'll move on into the main part of the pay-per-view. Let's get into the action, shall we? We start the pay-per-view, we start Vengeance 2004 with an absolute catch-as-catch classic, as JR would say. By the way, obviously we've most likely all heard the news that JR is in hospital at the time of recording this, so sending love, all the love to JR, big influence on me and my character in wrestling, with regard to like ring announcing and stuff. Anyway, yeah, we get into the first match. It is a tag team match scheduled for 1 fall, and it is Rhino and Tajiri versus Garrison Cade and Jonathan Coachman. Now, Jonathan Coachman has had a bit of a rivalry with Tajiri, gone back and forth. Don't know why they thought it was a good idea to have Coachman as an on-screen wrestling talent rather than an announcer, which he's so much better at. But to be fair to him, he's pretty athletic and he can do what some people can't, and that is sell. I think that's probably why they've done it. But yeah, I mean, it's an okay match. So basically, the challenge was Jonathan Coachman goes and gets a partner, and Tajiri goes and gets a partner. So Coachman comes out with Garrison Cade. They don't know who his partner is with regard to Tajiri. So Tajiri comes out, and then Rhino's music hits. Oh yeah, great music. Anyway, so yeah, bit of backing and forth in here. Rhino starts with Garrison Cade. Garrison Cade gets annoyed, slaps Rhino. That is pretty much, well, it's not even pretty much, it is a no-no. So Rhino fires up. It would eventually lead to Tajiri giving Coachman the green mist, and Garrison Cade getting speared by Rhino, and that is the finish. A goal to Garrison Cade, and win. Haha. Yeah, it's not a bad opener. It did what it needed to do. Had a bit of a story behind it, which is always good. And yeah, going to go down the middle with this one. 3 cheap shots out of 5 for this one. We then get Batista versus Chris Jericho. Batista on the up and up with this one, because he's just come in. He's obviously joined the Evolution, and he's got Ric Flair. He's got Triple H teaching him how to do things, which is just, you know, massive rub of the green, really, isn't it? Yeah, this match is decent, as you can expect. Jericho, the wily veteran, I suppose you would say now, unrecognisable now to what he was back in 2004, and his ring gear was always really shiny, and that's pretty cool, because I love Jericho's ring gear in 2024 and going forward. Just really cool, bright colours, and yeah, different to everybody else who was wearing red and black, black and red, black and blue. You know what I mean? It was just completely different. It was flamboyant without being over the top. Batista, massive guy, obviously. You've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you know who Batista is. And yeah, contrast of 2 styles here, you know. Jericho is not going to be overpowering Batista, but Batista can move. Batista can move really well, and a couple of cut-offs here from Batista, both involving versions of the Spinebuster. You don't often see 2 different versions of the Spinebuster. One is just your sort of rock type Spinebuster, is the way I could describe it, where he drops to his knees, and the other one just puts his hand on his chest after picking him up and just slams him down. Bit of a sort of choke slam type manoeuvre, but yeah, really cool. And I think I probably want to implement that into my move set at some point in my training. So yeah, you almost forget about these little moves these days, don't you, where super kick is a transition. Anyway, yeah, again, really good match. Didn't expect anything decent from these two. You can tell Batista is a little bit green here, but Jericho carries him through. That being said, Batista doesn't actually need carrying, just needs pointers as he goes through. But his character was, I'm big, I'm angry, I'm going to beat you up, and that's pretty much all you needed to know about Batista. Like I say, Jericho was a bit more flamboyant. Lots of there was a step up in Seguri they did, which looked really nice, and the match would finish with Batista's patented sit-out powerbomb, and I always found this really impressive because what he would do then is roll backwards, bearing in mind he's the size of a house, and then go for the pin. So, yeah, Batista bomb for the finish. Let me give this match 2.5 cheap shots out of 5. And Tilly the dog has joined me, and she agrees, don't you, Tilly? Right, we move on to the next match. Moving on to the next match now, but before we do that, we go into the back with Evolution and Triple H, who is talking to Eugene. We do see a little scene of Chris Benoit talking to Eugene with Triple H just peering around the corner. I miss these kind of segments. They are fun and they do make the pay-per-view move on, a bit like a film. Now, yeah, they're talking to Eugene in the back. They have a match. Eugene has a match with Ric Flair going for the Tag Team Championships. And, yeah, Triple H says, you know what, Chris Benoit's a liar. He punched you in the face. You don't want to be, you don't want to be associated with people like that, do you? And Eugene's obviously very confused. Triple H says, we've got a present for you. And then Ric Flair walks in. It's like, come on, we've got to get ready. It's like, go and get the present. And Ric Flair's like, I don't want to do it. And then he comes back in with a Ric Flair robe. Yes, come on, right? Who wouldn't want to wear one of those things? They're classic. So, yeah, Ric Flair reluctantly gives Eugene... I love this storyline, by the way. Don't love the... I love the character of Eugene. I don't love the character of Eugene, if you like. It's a really weird situation, but yeah, Ric Flair gives Eugene one of his robes, and then they head out to the ring. La Resistance make their way to the ring, grab the mic and start singing Canada in French. Ric Flair's music hits, he comes out doing his strutting. Eugene comes straight back out with him, and as Ric Flair turns to do his spin, he sees Eugene doing the same thing, and his reaction is just priceless. So they make their way down to the ring. Eugene obviously doing his happy wavy thing. It's Eugene and Sylvain Rognier who start, I believe. Eugene hitting all of Ric Flair's moves. Robert Conway comes in, hits all of Ric Flair's moves as well. There would be an eventual cut-off where Eugene would get beaten down a little bit. He would reach out for the tag from Ric Flair. Ric Flair would oblige and then come in and try and out-Ric Flair Eugene. I mean, come on, that alone. And there was some really good wrestling in here as well, some classic wrestling for what it was. And yeah, Ric Flair starts taking out La Resistance, and eventually they get a cut off as well and start beating down on Ric Flair, to the point that we never see Eugene tag back in again. So Ric Flair's getting beaten down. Referee's attention is on Sylvain Rognier, and Rob Conway comes and pulls Eugene off the apron, throws him into the steps, and gets back in and starts beating up Ric Flair again. Eugene's getting angry now. It's like, oh, you've done that to me, I'm going to get angry. So he gets in, hits a stunner, hits the rock bottom, starts beating people up. And yeah, it's just really cool that Eugene, the character, can just pick up any move, and it's pretty much like it's a satire on your character in a video game, but he's also playing someone with special needs. So, like I say, it's like an in-between, and it's an over-the-top special needs as well. So, yeah, Eugene does eventually get disqualified because the referee's trying to stop him from beating up La Resistance in the corner. Eugene pushes away the referee, and yeah, Ric Flair Eugene get disqualified. Silveronier, Robert Conway retain the championships. La Resistance still World Tag Team Champions. What we get after that is another stunner and another rock bottom and a people's elbow with a strut in between, whilst then Eugene picks up Ric Flair, reluctantly gives him a hug, Ric Flair does, and they head to the back. I love this match. I'm not going to lie, this is the kind of match that I'll probably end up putting on, just because I want people to be entertained by what I do. And yeah, like I say, I loved it. But it was more about the story being told, and that's what I really loved. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 cheap shots out of 5. It is a shame that Eugene and Ric Flair didn't pick up the championships here. I would have liked to have seen what they could do with those championships, the classic odd couple. But they already had Eugene and William Regal as well, so I guess they didn't want to overdo it. But yeah, that's that. And we move on to the next match. So we move on now to a no disqualification match between Matt Hardy and Kane. The story here is that Kane has coaxed Lita into sleeping with him. And some casual, yep. And yeah, this is the storylines in 2004. And basically, Lita admitted that she was pregnant. She did this before Kane revealed that they'd slept together. And apparently the baby is Kane's. So obviously this caused a bit of friction between Matt Hardy and Lita, who were a real couple at the time. And yeah, they used that in the storyline. So it comes down to the no disqualification match where Matt Hardy is fighting for his own salvation and that of Lita. So he's still a bit salty towards Lita, of course, not knowing whether the baby is his or not. So Lita is down at ringside, very well, not very torn, obviously, between Matt Hardy and Kane. But yeah, basically, it's the standard no disqualification match. It has no rules. So there's steel stairs being used, chairs. At one point, Matt Hardy goes over the announce desk. Lita gets involved, and that ultimately would lead to the finish here with Matt Hardy catching Kane out and finishing him off and getting the victory, which is a very surprise victory in terms of stature. I mean, Kane's huge. Matt Hardy is a former cruiserweight champion, so yeah, it's very, very surprising. But yeah, so Matt Hardy would actually get the victory here and move on. But I'm going to give this a, ooh, yeah, it's a pretty standard match. Going to give it a 3 out of 5. 3 cheap shots out of 5. Lita does get involved for the finish, which just makes sense because obviously she wants to protect Matt, her boyfriend, possibly the father of her child. But ultimately, Matt does fall out with her over this. After the 1, 2, 3 and the finish, Matt Hardy leaves very quickly, and the Lita goes chasing after him and says, "It could be yours." And Matt's like, "Just leave me alone." I was like, "Good for him. Good for him." But yeah, yeah, 3 cheap shots out of 5 for this one. Short, sharp, does what it needs to do. It was sort of like a secondary, third, tertiary storyline at the time. So yeah, it's okay. It's just okay. So we move on to the next match, which is for the Intercontinental Championship. The Intercontinental Champion at this point was Randy Orton, and he was running roughshod over Raw at the time and any legends that were coming through, of course, because he was indeed the legend killer. Sorry, I'm doing this whilst watching the results of the British election, and the new Prime Minister, I think, has just shaken the hands with Elmo. Um, I just cracked me up. Anyway, back to the wrestling. Yes, the Intercontinental Championship match. Now, I was watching this whilst on my exercise bike, which I do for half an hour every morning, and the match went as long as I was on my exercise bike. So this is a good 30-minute match, and it's a very good 30-minute match between two future heavyweight champions. Obviously, one of them not waiting very long until they get that honor. The other one waiting ever so slightly longer. But two very young up and comers come through the ranks. Randy Orton coming in quite a bit later than Edge. Edge having been around for a fair while through the Attitude Era. Randy Orton coming in at the start of the Ruthless Aggression Era, along with people like Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin and John Cena. I mean, that was the class of 2002. But this match, wow. I mean, there's not a lot of high flying, hard hitting action here. It's just pure wrestling. And I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. The fact that these guys could go half an hour just doing that is amazing. And it's a really, really good match. And it's definitely the highlight of the night. Well, there you go. Anyway, really good match. If you go back and watch one match from this pay-per-view, it would definitely be this one. So I'm going to give this one. I mean, it's a perfect match because everything they did was fairly basic, but it was exciting. It was what it needed to do. And obviously, neither of them gassed because they're very well conditioned. So I'm going to give this like the full amount of cheap shots that I can give it, and 5 cheap shots out of 5. It would be Edge that comes out with the victory here, with a roll up. In fact, I believe no, it wasn't. It was a spear. It was a spear. Randy Orton running into the corner, missing, and getting hit by the spear. Sorry, I'm getting my matches mixed up here. Edge hits the spear, gets the victory, becomes the new Intercontinental Champion over Randy Orton, who'd held the title for a long, long time. And really good match. Like I said, can you give it the full amount? 5 cheap shots out of 5 on this one. And then we move on to the next match, which is the women's number 1 contendership match. So they didn't even have a women's championship on this one. It was just for the number 1 contendership here. And Victoria gets the victory over Molly Holly. Sadly, around this time, the women were not getting the rub of the green that they deserved. These two women in particular were very, very good. Molly Holly and Victoria, both very established women's wrestlers. And they were not getting the rub of the green in favour of women that had come through that, I suppose, just in some people's opinions looked nicer. which is sad. And to see how far women's wrestling has come along since then is phenomenal. And I say this every single month. It's a real shame that these ladies went on after the match of the night, because the match itself wasn't actually bad. It's just that everyone was so hyped up from the previous match that they'd almost forgotten that this match was going to exist. And yeah, it was decent. It was a decent match. Victoria comes out with the victory over Molly Holly, who just had her head shaved previously at WrestleMania by Victoria, in fact. So this had a bit of history behind it. So yeah, it was okay. I'm going to give it 2 cheap shots out of 5, and we're then going to move on to the main event, which is Chris Benoit defending his championship against Triple H once again in some kind of iteration. So this match, I mean, should I say I'm getting bored of it now? Because we've seen it like 3 times. Realistically, this is the first time I think on a pay-per-view since Benoit picked up the championship that he's had a one-on-one match with Triple H, though. I will say that. So, um, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't really go wrong with these guys. It's just that it's been done, and he kind of got that feeling. The added thing here was Eugene, um, again playing into the story of the main event, which I think is crazy. As much as I hate Eugene at the time, and now just watching it, I think it's great, but also feel bad for thinking it's great. That yeah, it's yeah, it's just a main event. I mean, Chris Benoit does pick up the victory eventually, and this one is a roll up, which I was very surprised about. Again, there's not much action, but they didn't manage to keep my attention as much as Edge and Randy Orton did. And I guess that's a sign of Triple H being in the position that he was. He was just sort of getting championship matches, and Chris Benoit sort of. I mean, he did have a decent run, and he went up against quite a few big names, but there was nothing new about his run until SummerSlam, which is coming up next in August, of course, and yeah, it's just a match. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just a match. So I'm gonna give this one 3 cheap shots out of 5. For the hokey finish, it wasn't really a definitive finish. It was 2 low blows and Eugene teasing a chair shot whilst he was there. And yeah, it was kind of, yeah, just that. It was just kind of. So, yeah, that is Vengeance 2004. A fairly decent pay per view. Obviously, if I was going to say which one was better at this point between SmackDown and Raw, I have to say SmackDown had the better product. But in terms of pay per views, between Great American Bash and Vengeance, vengeance is the winner all the way. And there's a couple of really big reasons. If you've listened to my podcast on Great American Bash, then yeah, it is Great American Bashing, and it shouldn't. I'm recording this just after the 4th of July, so yeah. But there you go. That's that. We move on to our next pay-per-view, which happened to be SummerSlam, and some real big matches in that one. So we fly all the way to Canada for this one, and Ontario, in fact, where we go to the Air Canada Centre for SummerSlam, and obviously a much bigger crowd and all that kind of stuff. Gonna have bigger matches, and there's a couple of matches on Sunday Night Heat, so I think this is where I might start. This is where I might just start watching Heat before the pay-per-view, so I can give a informed review on the whole pay-per-view, including the pre-show. And with that, I'd say thank you very much for listening, Cheap Shot fans and Cheap Shot Nation wrestling fans. And I will leave you there. Go out and support independent wrestling. Get yourself a ticket to a local show. Because even though I do the reviews of the WWE shows in the past, independent wrestling needs your support. And, we wouldn't be in the position we are in this country at the moment, in Britain, having so much choice of what to go and watch if it wasn't for people's backbreaking work, sometimes literally trying to get British wrestling on the map again. And on the map, it definitely is. So, yeah, treat yourself. Go out and watch a wrestling show this weekend. The summer is full of them. Some of them free, some of them not. I'm on a free Fun Day show this weekend, for example, and 2 more next week. So, yeah, there's plenty of things out there. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye, Cheap Shot Nation. I will see you at SummerSlam.
Hiya.